When I was a toddler, a drug-addled homeless woman ran up to my father, ripped me from his embrace, and sprinted away. She knew she couldn't physically stop my father from jumping off the overpass, but thanks to her, I didn't die with him. "I forgot to grab something, I'll be right back," said Mom. As she rounded the corner out of sight, the cashier began ringing up our groceries. I decided to kill off a few characters in the book I'm writing. It would definitely spice up my autobiography a little. My husband has been very upset with me since my failed suicide attempt. He's crying nonstop, and he won't acknowledge me. After her best friend Julia committed suicide, my daughter Sarah started a charity in her honor to combat cyberbullying. While it took a lot of work to finally push Julia over the edge, my husband and I are just so happy that Sarah can add this activity to her college applications. They say you die once when you stop breathing, and a second time when someone says your name. For the last time sitting alone in my dilapidated apartment for years now, I realize it's not always in that order. So it turns out you can feel everything that happens to your body after death. I suppose I should be flattered my husband still finds me attractive after all these years. It's been almost a decade since I last saw my mother, and she still reminds me every day that if I misbehave again, she'll take my hearing too. For my last wish, I wished my dad to be alive again. I stood atop his grave and smiled, imagining him screaming and clawing at his coffin lid as he did the 2 previous times I wished him back. My dad told me that his flashlight could kill any monster. When I told him about what Uncle Jack had been doing to my sister, he made sure to demonstrate. All my life, my parents have told me not to open the basement door, but I got curious and disobeyed them. What is that glowing ball in the sky, and why does it hurt my eyes? Bullets flew through the mall, ripping clothes to shreds. In the chaos, no one noticed the mannequins bleeding. "Please take me instead," I screamed, grabbing at the 2 men who took my child. "Sorry, ma'am, children only," they said, as they continue loading up the last lifeboat on the ship. Here I am, trying my best to swim while slowly bleeding to death as I see the boat sailing away. What do they even need my fins for? As she said last time, we're stuck in a time loop, which really pisses me off because that's what. I promised my wife that when I returned from the war, we'd sit down and rewatch the movie from our first date. But now she's dying in the hospital, all because she wanted to make popcorn. I frantically ran to Walmart's customer service to pick up my son who got lost in the store. "Nice try, sir." His father already picked him up. The sound of my son calling for my help grew fainter and fainter. As the batteries in my hearing aids died, I realized it would soon be impossible for me to find him in time. I'm going to have to leave this sub. The crew looked on in terror as their captain opened the hatch at a depth of 2,000 feet. When the tsunamis hit, most people were evacuated. Feeling the trickle of water rise to my chin, I let go of the prison bars in bitter resentment. "Ah, so it's 2020, the time traveler said. Very early in from the looks of it," he muttered under his breath. After I killed myself to escape my tormentor, I lost all my memories as I was reincarnated in a new body. The mother held her newborn child in her arms and said, "Did you think you could get away that easily? Now be careful, that line of rock salt is the only thing keeping them out," the man said, welcoming my group into his refuge. "Sea salt," I clarified. "Sea salt keeps us out." They say we have a primal sense that we can just feel when someone is watching us. It's been a few weeks and it's clear that you do not have that sense. Yesterday, I visited my boyfriend, who was serving a life sentence in prison. As I watched that asshole shaking and pissing himself with fear, I knew he finally regretted beating me to death. As I slit her throat, I looked in her unblinking eyes and realized too late that she wanted to live. I knew it to be true because mirrors don't lie. My wife told me she thinks that she is going mad as she keeps hearing voices in our house after she committed suicide. My girlfriend helped me remove all the hidden speakers from around the house. I have been working on stories to compete with the best on this sub, but I'm finding it near impossible. I'm beginning to think some of you are just making yours up. I love going to the beach and watching the difference between the low and high tides, although this tide has been very low for quite some time. My grandmother died giving birth to my mother, who died giving birth to me. As I feel my consciousness slip away, I pray that my baby is a boy. There's a serial rapist in my town who claims over 100 victims every year. The fact that no one believes them makes me even more scared of her. After giving birth, I asked when the young redhead nurse will be back with my baby. There's apparently no nurses working here by that description. The principal of my son's school called me at work today to tell me my son pushed another kid while on a school excursion. I initially thought that this hardly warranted a phone call, until I remembered that my son's excursion was to the Grand Canyon. Daddy made me sit in the chair while he tied a string from my tooth to the doorknob. Before he slammed the door, he said, "Tell me where mommy went and we can stop doing this." Battery at 1%, I looked at Earth one last time before my suit ran out of power. I put up some pretty solid posts last night, but I woke up this morning and noticed that almost all of them got taken down. I can't help but wonder if they made it past the fence this easy. Who's to say they aren't already inside? I framed the first letter I got as a police officer, from a woman thanking me after I'd supported her through her daughter's suicide. I passed it in my hallway every day for nearly 8 years, before realizing the handwriting was the same as on the girl's suicide note. I laid paralyzed, patiently waiting for the curse to be lifted by a true love's kiss. When the prince came, he tore away my dress with lust, and I realized I was never meant to be saved. Tinder is completely useless, and I don't have a single match. If I don't find another way to start a campfire tonight, I'll freeze to death. When the kidnapper made me guess where he kept my daughter, I went for the basement and he said correct, allowing me to see her. But when I found her severed head in there, I learned that every other choice would have been correct as well. It seems you have discovered an entirely new type of termite. The doctor turned around with the X-rays. This also explains the aching you've been feeling in your bones. I look at my father's head on the wall, knowing that he'll finally be proud of me today. Then I look back at the terrified hunter and sink my antlers into his chest. In his last days, Grandpa would weep and rave about the fires of hell, and I wondered how such a good man could fear such a thing. After the funeral, I found the photographs and learned for the first time that his days in Buchenwald had not been spent as a prisoner. I used to hate the sound of crickets outside the lonely farmhouse. Now every time they go silent, I know that thing is passing by, and I pray for them to chirp again. Whenever I considered killing myself to escape my parents' abuse, I just recite my mantra, "You don't deserve to die." Ironically, now that they are old, hungry, covered in bedsores, and begging to be put out of their misery, I still have the same mantra. 911, what's your emergency? I asked, and listened to the quiet sobs of a little kid on the end of the line. I think my daddy wants to kill me, the girl said and cried, making me freeze on the spot as I recognized my daughter's voice. When I traveled back in time, my past self asked with tentative hope, when does it get better? I couldn't think of how to answer without breaking his heart, but as I began to fade out of existence, I realized my hesitation gave him everything he needed to know. I was born blind, but was lucky enough to have a loving mother who took care of my every need. Imagine the betrayal I felt when a stitch slipped and a ray of light hit my eye for the first time.